Welcome to the Inventory Professional Podcast, brought to you by InventoryBase, providers of industry-leading property inspection software, accredited training, and on-demand property reports. Join us as we discuss the latest news, legislation, and all things property, hosted by our very own inventory expert, Sean Hemming-Metcalf. With regular special guests, listen in to our open and honest discussions about the role of the inventory professional and how to navigate through this ever-changing, fast-paced industry.
Welcome to the Inventory Professional. I'm Sean from InventoryBase Academy, and I'm joined again by Melissa from MGN Inventories. Hi Melissa, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Brilliant, lovely. So today, the podcast is going to be coronavirus. I make no apologies for that. It is very much a topic of conversation at the moment, quite rightly. It's a serious situation right across the board, every single country is affected. One thing I do want to make sure that everyone is aware of, we are not, myself and Melissa, we're not medical professionals. We are taking the same advice as everybody else from the government in regards to hygiene and how we conduct ourselves in regards to, keeping away from people if we're not well, etc. So I won't be commenting necessarily on that side of things. It's more about seeing how we as inventory clerks ourselves, both Melissa and I, run our own companies. We're doing inventories on a daily basis. I'm still hands-on, and how we can offer our support and what else we can do as clerks to minimise the impact, make sure everybody is safe, but also looking towards our clients and potential impact of a downturn in work and what practical information, help and advice and guidance we can give everybody to just try and help, really. So that's our standpoint. I will be putting links on for the government website, on the show notes for the podcast. And I've also, for those of you who have not seen already, I've put out blogs and I've got some other information that's practical for clerks to use should you want it. And again, I'll put those all on the show notes so you can pick up all that information from there. So today, we all know what's happening in the world. We know it's very, very serious. But equally, we're also looking at ourselves in regards to what do we do as clerks, how do we minimise the potential for transference of either illness from one another to our clients, to tenants, how are we going to conduct ourselves within the properties. So my advice so far is obviously, again, mirror what the government is saying in regards to hygiene. I've been out today, I've bought wipes. Melissa and I were literally just talking before we started, weren't we, Melissa, about how you clean your hands and what kind of wipes and sanitizer you need, which at the moment is really difficult to get hold of.
It is gold dust, yes.
it is total gold dust. So I've got a quick idea. One of the things I've told all my clerks is wear gloves, latex free, so that you can still carry on and do your work, but you're not actually touching any surfaces with your own hands. Use hand sanitizer if you've got it, or soap where it's practical, but I know that's really, really difficult. So something I come across today, Screwfix. I don't know if you go to Screwfix at all, Melissa?
No, it's not somewhere that I'm often going to be honest. Not somewhere I frequent.
So I might have an idea for you. So Screwfix I come across today because I'm like everybody else. I'm looking for hand sanitizer and wipes, etc., and I'm really struggling. So Screwfix do a big pot of wipes, like industrial size wipes that are antibacterial. You can use to wipe your hands and wipe down surfaces, handles, etc. But they only come in those, those really big tubs. Do you know the industrial size ones you get? The bit like paint pots.
Yes.
Type of thing. So I thought, well, if I can't get the small ones, let's get the big tub. So I've got a big tub, and all I'm going to do is take all of those really naughty plastic boxes I have from eating Chinese when I probably shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I thought you would enjoy that. And I'm going to literally just fill those with these wipes from this big tub and create loads of little tubs, and they're going to put them in my work bag, in my car, and just so that I've got them available. Also, if my clerks need them, then I've got some available. I don't know if you'd thought about anything along those lines, or if you've got any top tips for that.
No, I hadn't. That is a great idea, actually. And, we've all got that Tupperware drawer as well, haven't we?
Oh.
So that, because I was looking at different solutions, and I'd even got to the stage where I thought, well, I wonder if some of the sort of spray bottles, if I could mix some sort of TCP sanitizer in to take with me, because finding sanitizers and the gel ones is, like we said, it's just gold dust at the moment. So I think at the moment it's trying to be, just as you have been, sort of ingenious and finding other solutions to help us along our way.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, it wasn't necessarily my initial idea. Someone actually mentioned to me about B&Q, and I hadn't thought about B&Q because they do wipes and cleaners, for workers, etc. But again, they're really, really out of stock and really busy and not much on the shelves. So I thought about Screwfix, popped in there today, found these tubs, and it just made sense. And I'm like you, probably. I've got so many of these Tupperware type tubs just sat around collecting dust, getting in my way, but I won't throw them away because I just might one day need them.
Exactly.
Yeah, so today's the day. But I thought, well, it makes perfect sense. And then that way, then I've got something I can take with me. It's portable, bang it in my bag, run in the car. So I've always got something with me. One of the other top tips I've got for everybody also is about talking to your clients. I mean, have you spoken to your clients about this situation, Melissa?
Yes. So the clients that when I've been popping in and we've been having sort of a general chat about the situation and what's happening, and I've made a point of not touching keys now directly. So I have sort of a little plastic wallet where I ask them to pop the keys into, and then I'm sort of donning gloves and things afterwards to touch them. So we've had that conversation, just so, and again, so I suppose so it doesn't seem rude because we're all aware of what's happening, but I'll sort of say, oh, could you just pop them in there for me, and then I'll be wearing gloves. And I think that helps alleviate some of their fears as well.
Yeah.
Because they see that you're doing something about it. And, the trouble with keys is there's so much that you can touch, isn't there? They get passed from person to person. So I think it's all of us taking those little steps. But that's what I've been doing so far, is when I've seen people, I've just been having that little conversation to tell them really what I'm doing. So they're aware that I'll be taking some action to it, and hopefully, that spurs them along a little bit as well to think about things that they might be doing.
I've done exactly the same as you. What I did do is I sent out an email to the clients and basically said to them, obviously everyone's aware of the situation, what are your plans? And in the same breath, I also said to them, this is what I would like to happen. And I'm pretty much mirroring what you're doing, but maybe on a little bit of a bigger scale, because I've got our clerks also to be concerned about, and what I've said to them is that the keys should be, where possible, cleaned or sanitized. I've asked them to put the keys into envelopes with the clerk's name on the front, because using IB, they already know which clerks are going to be coming to them because they had the initials on the booking, so they know who to expect, so they can do that. That way, that minimizes contact with the agent and also with the clerk themselves. Clerks then would wear gloves, use the gloves in order to take the keys out, use them in the property, use gloves whilst in the property so they're not touching surfaces, put the keys back into the envelope once they've done, and when they hand it back, then they know to re-clean them. So that way, then hopefully that minimises a lot of that risk. The clients seem very happy. I think one of the things that they're more happy about is the fact that we as clerks are thinking about them. We're being proactive and we're trying to give them solutions and not problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, so we're not making their life difficult, but I think it's just sort of taking those practical steps for everyone. On that line, actually, I've taken a step further with regards to shoes, because I've got overshoe covers for when carpets have been cleaned and various things, times when you're not necessarily taking your shoes off. So I've started to wear those as well as soon as I go in the property, because it occurred to me, we're all thinking about surfaces and things that we physically are touching all the time, like light switches and cupboards and all of that. But actually, it could be transferring to shoes as well. So that's something that I thought of, whether it makes much of a difference. But again, it's just taking those steps to be a little bit cautious, really.
No, I think that makes perfect sense because, I don't know about you, but it's not until all this has started to happen that I've really paid attention to what I'm doing with my hands. And I'll qualify that by saying, I know when I touch things, etc., but I've never really thought about it. And I know when to wash my hands, and I probably don't wash my hands as much as I should do. And I certainly am doing it now. But now I'm consciously thinking about it, about all the different surfaces I touch, and when I touch my face, or if I sneeze or cough, etc. It's only at that point I've realised actually that all the different things you're doing constantly that could cause transference either to you or from you. And yeah, I mean, certainly with footwear, I'm always adjusting my laces or, mucking around with my socks. Like you said, there's always a surface potentially to be touched. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I mean, it might be overcautious, but it's one of those things that I think it might just make a difference. It occurred to me when I came home one time and I was taking my boots off and my hands were all over them, and then I immediately went to touch my face because apparently I can't stop. Now I'm mega aware of doing it, and then I thought, oh, actually, I've been really aware of my hands all day, but I've not been aware of what my feet are doing.
But exactly. No, I think that's a brilliant point. And it's not until you start thinking about it do you realise what you're actually touching and how and when and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, if anything, if there's any positive at the moment to come from all of this, is the fact that we're a bit more aware. We're aware of who we're greeting, how we're touching surfaces, that transference, and just being a bit more aware of it. And I think also by wearing the gloves, by wearing the overshoes as well, should the tenant be there, should the landlord be there, or the agent turn up, etc., it's that visual reassurance as well that we as clerks are taking every opportunity to be as careful and as considerate as we can, for that property. Because if we've been in there, then the next person would be the tenant going in. Equally, if it's a checkout, the next person could be going as cleaner. They're all people that potentially touching surfaces, all potential transference. So I think anything we can do to minimise that risk is got to be a positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, lovely. So obviously you've got the gloves, you've got the overshoes, you've got the sanitisers. We're using the idea of, like you are with the plastic wallet, about envelopes to, exchange keys, etc., to minimise things. The other one is we've actually spoken to all our clients and they are all in agreement about the idea of having no tenants at the checkout. Now, this might be a bit controversial, and I definitely want your opinion on this, Melissa. We are in close proximity with the tenant. They don't know if we're ill. We don't know if they're ill. We don't know what stage they might be at. And my biggest worry is that I'll either give something to them or pick something up, and then obviously then the wider transference that will then create. So to me, it makes perfect sense that we basically conduct all our reports without the tenant present. Now, inventory, that's absolutely fine. Interim, that's not going to be possible. So that, I think we'll discuss that separately. But certainly at checkout, from my point of view, as an impartial inventory clerk, our job is to do the best report we can, not for anybody's benefit apart from the property. And the reason I say about the benefit of the property is if we get the report right on the property, then everybody else is safeguarded, i.e. from the tenant, landlord to letting agent, and we're giving all the right information to the arbitrator. And that's always been my stance. But if you've got the tenant there, there's a risk. Now, that might be controversial because quite rightly tenants have the right to be there, and I'm not saying they don't have the right to be there, but I've also got to safeguard my clerks and also again the supply chain in regards to the agent. If the clerk is then meeting with the tenant, then seeing the agent, and then the potential of transference that way. So far, all my clerks and my clients are in agreement. And what I'm doing now is speaking to the tenants. So I'm ringing them individually for all the reports we've got booked to say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And also then telling them, OK, if you've got something that you either want us to be aware of or to know how to do that, i.e. tell me now, send me an email, leave a note in the property, or when the report is shared with you, have the opportunity to write on the report. From your point of view, Melissa, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. I know sort of tenants want to be there, and I think it's that reassurance that you're not, going to go in and blame them for everything. Reassurance that they want to be there, and that they won't get unnecessarily blamed for things. And I think, in times past, when you are meeting them, and you sort of reassure them what you're there for, that you're there for the property, and you're there to make an unbiased report. I often find that tenants then decide to leave halfway through anyway. Once they're seeing what you're doing, they're not so worried about it. I can see that it, could potentially upset some tenants, but I think, again, if they've got the reassurance that you can either tell us before, or, again, especially with InventoryBase, it's so easy to add your comments to that document that hopefully that should put them at ease. But, likewise, I think that everyone's sort of reading what's going on at the moment, and it is, completely justifiable that we want to protect ourselves and them. So you would think that, people would be quite sensible to that, and actually it's benefiting them as well to not necessarily be there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if it was done in any other time, yeah, I could understand people would be a bit, well, actually, that's not really fair, and I have my rights, and I perfectly understand that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think you have to talk to the tenant personally. So I'm ringing them, I'm talking to them, I'm explaining to them, I'm answering their queries, I'm making myself available to them. So should they have any worries, any concerns, we can, get over those and put in place whatever we need to make sure that they are reassured that this is about their safety, about minimising their risk to them, to their family, to their wider community. This is not because of any other reason, to prevent them from having their say, or, trying to withdraw any of their rights. But I certainly have seen positive responses from them, and also from the clients. And the clients have said to me, no, that makes perfect sense. And in some respects, clients haven't actually thought about that. Because,
yeah.
Again, this goes back to a previous podcast where we said, the report just gets done. It just arrives, doesn't it? Where the report fairy, for want of a better phrase.
That's it.
So that's a reason why when I'm making sure that I'm making myself available to them, and the client feels the same way as me. They haven't thought about it, but now I've mentioned it, they thought, actually, yeah, that makes perfect sense. The biggest problem, I think, now also is going to be interim inspections, because they are tenant facing. You are going into their home, and there's potential for transference. There's a bigger risk, because, again, they don't know if we're unwell, and vice versa. And of course, we're going to be in their property. So they're quite rightly worried. I mean, how would you deal with that particular situation?
Yeah, so I did have a number of inspections, sort of interim visits booked in. And for those people, because we'd already agreed on sort of dates and times, they were a mixture of people being home and, people that were happy for me to go over the agent's keys. So I've sort of revisited those and had a conversation with them, and just said in the politest way, have you been anywhere? Are you, are you feeling ill at all? And also, are you happy, happy again for me to do it? And some people have been, fine. And others actually have taken that opportunity to say, actually, yes, I know I had agreed on it, but thinking on it now, I'd rather, someone wasn't in the home at this time. And again, I think it's taking those steps for them to know that we're thinking about it, and giving them the opportunity to say no, but also protecting sort of our safety, and knowing, all we can do is ask if you've been to any of the countries that have recently been affected, which obviously now is pretty much anywhere, if they've been in contact with anyone, and how they're feeling, really. So since the whole thing has blown up, I haven't actually had any inspections, and now this week I've got some booked. So I think there's only sort of a couple where they've said, yeah, that's fine, and they've not been poorly. And again, I think necessarily if people aren't home, there's not so much risk as what there would be doing a checkout. We're still actually touching less things in theory, not opening all the cupboards and all of that. And again, if we're taking the steps to wash hands, do hand sanitizer, and use gloves, that again, hopefully it's just taking those practical steps that it won't be an issue for either party.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing is we are doing our best to help inform, to offer advice in regards to how we're going to do things, and why we're going to be doing things a certain way. And certainly with the interim, if you are going to attend, ask those questions. And I don't think, like I said, especially the way things go at the moment, it's necessarily about what countries they've been, because as we all already can see, there's transference within the country, so it's not just necessarily where you've been abroad, etc. So I think it's about informing them, letting them know, giving them your choice, also making sure from our point of view we record that. So in the notes section, we make sure that they put in what date they've spoken to the tenant, what the result of that conversation is, letting the landlord know or letting the agent know, especially if they've refused, because there's only so much we can do. We can't insist on it. Yes, you could give them 24 hours notice and go in, but then in this particular time, is that sensible? Is that insensitive more than anything else? Could we then be looked at as we're putting someone at risk because they don't know whether we're ill or not, and how that would make them feel? No different if someone's coming into your home and effectively uninvited. How do they feel about that? And all the implications that come with that. So I think conversation, dialogue, making sure you're keeping a complete audit trail of these conversations, who's done what when, informing the client, keeping everybody up to date, and taking advice, and looking at what other options you have, i.e. rebooking at a later date. If there's an urgent need to go in there, then again, you'd need to go back to the client and then agree exactly what those next steps would be. And if you're, like you said, you are going in, making sure you're wearing your gloves, making sure you're sanitizing anything you do touch in regards to, from your hands point of view, keeping your footwear on, etc., minimizing any potential touch and transference. And again, letting the tenant know, because this is their home. There could be children there, could be there with people with suppressed immune systems. We don't know the medical history. We've got no right to know that medical history, but we do have a right to be safe, and also to make sure they are safe as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think maybe, now everything's very new, and it's in the forefront of our mind. And I did read that, obviously it's ever changing, but things might peak at a later date anyway. And I think you can only do what you can at this point in time. It might need to be something that's ever evolving, and we need to review sort of further down the line. For example, people now that are cancelling inspections because it is so new, or if this carries on until June or July, whether, how we go about that really, if we need to think of other processes. But I mean, like you say, we're taking those steps to protect ourselves and clients and tenants, and that's all we can do, and just keep reviewing it really, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Keeping up to date with government guidance, advice, adhering to that advice and guidance, as well as, and like I said, keeping everybody informed, and treat everybody as you would like to be treated. I mean, people are worried. It's a worrying time. There's no two ways about that. And this is not something, unfortunately, that's going to go away anytime soon. So we've got to deal with that, and deal with that sensitively, and so protect ourselves, protect our clerks and our clients and tenants alike. Because we're all in it together. This is not something that's going to just affect a certain group, a certain age, or, like I said, is going to go anywhere anytime soon. So with that in mind, the other part of this podcast that I wanted to touch on was about forward planning, because there is a likelihood of impact to our business, depending on what government restrictions are given to us. And we're going to know, I think, more certainly within the next few days, next week or so, as to exactly what that's going to look like. And there is a worry. I don't know about you, but I'm certainly worried about what the potential impact it will have on the business, on my clerks, and obviously on the clients as well.
Yes, absolutely. It is something that I think, because it's so unknown, it's unprecedented, really. There are conversations about the government saying quarantines, and it's really hard to sort of potentially know what the impact of that would be, and really how to work around it.
We're in uncharted territory. This is unprecedented time. We've got realistically no parallel to draw, apart from using common sense. And it's something I've been saying in a lot of my blogs about, making sensible decisions, not panicking, not overly worrying, just taking the situation as it comes and thinking, okay, what can I do to help? What can I do to advise? So certainly from a clerk point of view, I sent out a letter to all my clerks to say, okay, well, this is the current situation. This is what we're doing in regards to keys, to tenants, how we're managing the clients, making sure they're aware of the government websites for advice in regards to hygiene, and also what happens if they feel unwell, to let me know, because the last thing I want them to do is feel that they have to go to work in order to work when they're unwell. And I'll appreciate, because we're all self-employed, there's a lot less kind of benefits and government help as it stands at the moment for us. So I get that it's worrying, but equally your health or clerk's health is paramount. Work will sort itself out. We'll get around it somehow, but health is the main thing that I'm concerned about, to make sure everybody is okay. Because we can do everything or we can try and sort everything else out as we go along, but health is a different matter altogether, and that's my main concern.
Yes, absolutely. And like you say, you don't necessarily want people feeling like I've got to do this, when actually the impact of that would might affect them personally. It might affect other parties. So it's being cautious, really, that it's not wise to be carrying on doing things when you're starting to feel ill. Or I think maybe as well, people that have had sort of a bit of contact with someone that potentially is undiagnosed yet, but is showing symptoms. And I think it'd be quite easy for people to say, oh, well, we don't know if they have been diagnosed with it yet, and should I self-isolate? But it's really thinking of, what the greater good with that is. Would you really want to take that risk?
Yeah, exactly. But I know it's such a balance, because on the other hand, you're equally worried about work, being paid, etc., etc. So I think certainly from our point of view as clerks, as business owners, what we can do is just help advise, inform, put as many safety protocols as we can in place, like keys, gloves, overshoes, reducing tenant contact as much as possible, anything to lessen the risk, keep advised in regards to current government advice, make sure you keep up to date with that, and then just look to see what else you can do in regards to the client themselves. Talk to your clients, ask them, what are you doing? As one of the things I did say, in my email to all my clients is, what protocols have you got in place? What do you plan to do? How do you manage, or how are you going to manage the risk? Including one that I spoke to, runs one of our larger client groups. And they said, well, this is what we're going to do if, for argument's sake, someone gets ill. This is where all the keys are going to go if we have to shut some of the offices because we don't have enough staff, and this is how we're going to manage it forward. And by me knowing that, I can then say to clerks, this is what we're going to do, this is how excuse me, this is how we're going to manage the situation going forward, and literally just take it day by day. So I think communication is one of the key things, but also looking to find that
the balance.
Find the balance, offer a solution, think about, okay, what can I do as opposed to what can't I do?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
That's it. I mean, and because we don't know how long this might go on for, it is, like we said, taking those practical solutions where you got to have an air of positivity about it, and almost, that kind of English, just keep going, let's just carry on, take it day by day, and rather than sort of the panic inducing things that are happening at the moment, it's like, actually, if this was a couple of days, you could understand that panic, but actually if this is going to go on long term, then we need to have processes in place just to protect everyone, really.
Yeah, exactly. So another option for clerks also is the fact that Workstreams is now up and running. So if for any reason your clerks aren't available, that they are having to self-isolate or they're unwell, then Workstreams is a potential option for you to liaise with other clerks using the InventoryBase system so that they can continue to work, continue to get the jobs done. And one of the things that I've actually said to my clients is that I have Workstreams as an option, and I will enact that as we go forward, because it's a really good service. It's really helpful to be working with like-minded clerks on the InventoryBase system, and it means then that our workload is still covered and that no one's actually going to be affected from that point of view, i.e. tenants not able to move in because the inventory's not been done, or the checks haven't been done, etc. So Workstreams is a realistic option, and if people want more information on that, again, I will put the details on the show notes for that. So I think certainly make sure that your health and safety is taken care of. Reduce your risk, reduce potential transference, talk to your clients, talk to your clerks, because everybody's worried. So it doesn't matter whether it's client, clerk, tenant, landlord, everybody's worried. So talk to everybody. Offer advice where you feel able to, offer solutions where you're able to, and also just be able to listen. I mean, one of the things I did, as I put out on LinkedIn, if clerks, much support to everybody as possible. And, if you're not sure, or if you just want to have a chat, then you all know where I am, and I'll have my contact details on the show notes as well as. I hope that everyone has found some of our tips useful. I hope that we've helped allay some people's fears and worries and concerns, and just know that we're all here, we're all in it together, we will get through it all together, and that hopefully this will be not necessarily a longer term issue, but certainly at the moment I don't think it's going to go anywhere soon. So let's think about what positive steps we can do and how we can best support each other.
Yes, no, absolutely, I agree. I think like you say, we're all in it together. Let's all be safe, be vigilant, help each other out, have those conversations, and have a base where we can share our top tips. Like the comments on the podcast, we can say things like the shoes, the sanitizers. If someone else comes up with a great solution as well, then it'd be great if we benefit each other, and let everyone know what we're finding works.
Absolutely, yeah. Sharing is caring. Great hashtag, but it's very, very true, even more so in this particular situation. And let's just be very supportive, see what we can do, help our clients, help our clerks to all get through this, and hope that not a longer term issue, and just keep up to date with government advice, keep your eye on all the news outlets, follow advice, and as we know more and understand more, then we will be touching it on a future podcast. But again, what we want to do is be supportive. So on that note, thank you very much indeed for joining us at the Inventory Professional. Please stay safe, and also wash your hands frequently.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Inventory Professional Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, subscribe to our podcast now and share the love. This podcast was brought to you by InventoryBase, providers of industry-leading property inspection software, accredited training, and on-demand property reports.